Welcome to The Beatbox, the show where we play and talk about video game music and the games they're from. We're your hosts, I'm Phil.
I'm Tom.
We'll journey from the old to the new and everything else in between. So, kick back, relax, and enjoy the beats.
I'm not sure about you, Phil, but I'm really excited for this new format that we're bringing to episode 1.
I couldn't agree more. I think this is way more professional.
For sure. We got our act together. We're really serious about this. We're very passionate about it, so we really want to keep going and push these forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got a good set of songs and pieces for you to listen to today. I'm hoping that they tickle you a little bit.
Same here. I can mimic that. I think definitely for this episode, I've turned it up a notch. I think it's very upbeat, very high tempo compared to what I brought last time. So I'm hoping you enjoy them too.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, should we get started then with my first playthrough?
Sounds good to me, Phil.
Cool. All right, let me get it started.
Wow, that was a very nice first piece, I must admit. The tempo is definitely different from what I've brought, for sure.
Oh, I'm glad that you think so. Would you like to guess what game you think this is from?
All right, so I'm thinking modern within the past 10 years.
Okay.
I'm thinking, it's a game where it's not putting you in a rush. It's sort of uh, your character is definitely in there, and there is an overarching story, but there's stuff to do around you. I don't know. It's got that sort of tempo feeling to me.
Okay.
Um, I was thinking, I don't think it is from this game, but I've got the vibe down. I had Life is Strange, either one or two.
Okay.
Very much sort of a Walking Dead Telltale type game about a girl finding herself in college. She finds out she has supernatural powers,
Yeah.
and it's very much that vibe I was giving, where there's
Yeah.
no rush. She's just trying to get to and from uh, her human interactions whilst dealing with that overarching story.
So this is from a game called Disco Elysium, which
Disco Elysium. I've played it.
have you? Have
Yeah,
you?
and I literally don't remember it. Where is this from in Disco Elysium?
So this is the Whirling in Rags theme, which is the 8 a.m. theme, and it's the first thing that you kind of hear after you've woken up in your room and it's all trashed, and you leave the top floor of the Whirling in Rags hostel, and you go downstairs, and this music starts playing, and I mean, you've played Disco Elysium. I don't need to tell you what a ride it is.
Yeah, it surprises me that it's from that game
Mm.
because for me personally, that game gets pretty high tempo. And so to have that at the beginning, what made you want to choose that?
So I thought that it might be something that you hadn't heard of or had played Disco Elysium. So I'm glad to hear that you have played Disco Elysium. But funnily enough as well, I actually just finished playing Disco Elysium today. So
It's on the mind.
it's on the mind, exactly. And yeah, I mean, an absolutely beautiful game. So this piece of music and all of the music within Disco Elysium is composed and played by a British band called Sea Power. The world building in this game is immense. Like, it really doesn't handhold you in the first couple of hours of playing it. You're kind of expected to pick it up quite quickly.
For sure.
But I think it really sets the tone for the game quite well, especially since you spend a lot of time in the Whirling in Rags as you go throughout the game. Obviously, the game compels you to go outside into Revachol, into the world of Martinez, but you end up inevitably going back to the Whirling in Rags to do your rest there. There are a couple of characters that are in the Whirling in Rags, and I think it's just an iconic piece of music, and what greater as well to have it be composed and played by a British band as well.
Sure. I was thinking back on my playthrough of it, and I think the thing that really stuck out to me, and now it just makes sense, now that you've said the game, there's sort of, I think something that stuck out with me is the art style is very unique. I think it's very grainy, but there's a way they deal with light in that game, where if I remember correctly, when the room is trashed at the beginning, even then, there's light coming through the windows, and it's almost shimmering. It feels like you're underwater with some of the light effects that they use in the game, which I think is awesome. My favorite piece of the track itself for me is, and I wanted it to come back, because it comes in midway through, but develops right into the end, is the little twinkling piano in the background. It gives you a little flavor in the middle, and I wanted more. And I thought, as the track tapered off, it wasn't going to bring them back in. But then, as everything crescendoed, it was right there, which is nice.
Yeah, going back to what you said actually about the visual art of it, I think from what I read, it's all oil painting style esque kind of thing. And in the game, obviously there are skill checks and there are all of these dialogue trees, but one of the skill checks that I thought was absolutely beautiful was the visual calculus one. So when you do a visual calculus check, it shows you kind of a before image of the scene itself, and it just looks fantastically portrayed in the sense that, you know, you're a detective, and it's almost as if the screen itself is the whiteboard in which he's using to write all of his notes in, and you see that perspective. Honestly, it's just absolutely beautiful. This won the 16th BAFTA Game Award for Best Music. Disco Elysium did, for I think it was for 2019, 2020, and the game came out in 2019 as well. But that year of the BAFTA Game Awards, Disco Elysium actually won 3 BAFTAs in total. So it won debut game, it won the music, and it also won the narrative. And I think that is so telling for the playthrough of the game. The music and the narrative, they go so hand in hand together. And even though this show is, you know, specifically about the music, you really do have to tip your hat off to the narrative within the game as well, which is, you know, part of the part of the playing experience. The narrative, it's kind of the whole thing about it, and you hear such character through not just the people that you meet, but also the inner monologue that you have with yourself, and it's honestly incredible.
Yeah, I certainly know a few games since then that have obviously been inspired by it. We've had a few games. The name escapes me, but there's a game where essentially you're dumped on a planet with a bunch of other felons, and essentially like a mining company, but you're sent down to investigate sort of what happened. It might be from the same developers, I don't know, because it is incredibly similar.
I think it's interesting as well that you mentioned that it's not one that, you know, is recognizable perhaps for yourself, but I think that for me it's very different to the quite somber tone throughout the rest of the game. And, you know, we're dealing with a very wacky world here, you know, and you're thrown into a very almost weird situation. You know, you're an drug-induced amnesia cop who is trying to understand his self, and B, trying to understand the world around him, and then C, trying to also investigate this murder that's happened right outside the hostel.
I mean, he is on a journey almost. There's a lot of inner commentary in that game that we don't really have to delve into, but one that sticks out for me is his idea of like being masculine, and the fact that like when he was a violent drunk, essentially, he is overpowering. He's like destructive, but the whole game is about him coming back from that. And I think the sort of tone of the music that you play is a good start, especially assuming it's from the beginning, right? You start on an empty palette.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. That maybe there is hope for him after all. Sort of.
And it tells you that from the start.
No, I like that. No, I really like that. But yeah, it's been on my mind. I think it's a really nice little track. And obviously a really fantastic game. Any listeners who haven't played it, I would highly recommend. It's maybe a little difficult to get into because of the world building in it, but if you stick it out, I promise there will be a lot of reward for it.
Well, I can give you another reward for the excellent idea with that music. And that's by spinning up the next track.
Absolutely. Go for it.
We're going to kick it up a notch. Here we go. So it's a pretty iconic track. I
It,
thought I'd start off. I was a little bit inspired by Tyrion last week.
oh yeah.
I wanted to bring something. I think we talked about Metal Slug and we talked about that era of games.
Mm.
I wanted to bring something from a side-scrolling shooter. Do you have any ideas what it is, Phil?
Well, now that you said side-scrolling shooter, I'm assuming it's from Mega Man.
You are on the money. Do you know which Mega Man it is?
I have never played any of the. To be honest, I didn't even realize there was more than one Mega Man. Um,
Oh, there's a few
there's
for sure.
of course there's quite a few because there's so many different iterations of the Mega Man character, isn't there? I Let me guess. Mega Man 7. I don't know how many Mega Man now.
This is from Mega Man 2. This is Dr. Wily's theme.
Uh,
I think it sort of ascended the game in a way. It became incredibly popular. Uh, I think the translation for the original track is called Countless Memories.
okay.
It became like a massive meme for a while back in like old school internet era, mostly in Japan, and then really blew up from there. And it's now in every Smash game. It's in videos to this day. It's played. It really feels like we played the Donkey Kong Country track the other day, and I think that's the same sort of vibe where, as you said, you haven't heard Mega Man 2, but you knew it was Mega Man, and you'd heard it before, so...
Yeah, I was guessing one of the Man series because in my head I also had Bomberman in my head, but then when you said side scroll, I was like, oh well, I know that Mega Man has that little pellet gun that he fires, so I was gonna go for I went for Mega Man instead. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've definitely played Super Smash Bros. And Mega Man is in Super Smash Bros. At least one of the later ones. Yeah, I like it. It's very it's very repetitive. I wonder how often there were loops. I think there's like at least maybe 2 or 3 loops.
Yeah, the official track is about 2 minutes 50.
Okay.
So there's definitely 2 loops in there, and then there's just a little build up at the end, then cuts back through to the beginning.
So who
think-
is Dr. Wily?
Dr. Wily is essentially it's stage 1. It's Wily's castle, so you're fighting through Wily's castle. It's honestly generic, old school video game trope. Bowser's castle, for instance. You know.
So is Dr. Wily the antagonist of the series?
One of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's Mega Man has spanned so long at this point that you get Mega Man 1 through. I think there's like 5 or 6 of the thing.
Okay.
It's a game that sort of kept selling incredibly well because it was kind of the best in the genre for that age demographic at the time. And then the sales really tapered off, and Capcom sort of stopped pushing Mega Man games out. But there's a new one coming out, or has just come out recently, and I know that they've done the same thing with the most recent Samus game, which sold pretty well. So I think it would be a shame to lose an iconic character. He's definitely based off Astro Boy, which is like a very original anime from Japan. I think it was a 60s anime. It's that old. The reason why I really did bring this is it was another example of one of those sort of looping tracks back then where they just hit the mark. There's hundreds of tracks from this, but this is the one that has millions of views, and people on the YouTube the YouTube video showing this are like, I didn't know it was from this, but I've heard this everywhere. So I think it's an example of how I wouldn't go as far as to say it's breached the sort of video game bubble, but within it you can be 16 years old nowadays and you would have heard it from somewhere.
So interesting. So with it being Dr. Wily's theme, is there also a Mega Man theme? Does he have a theme?
There's a main theme for all the games.
Okay.
So I can assume you can put certainly the main theme attached to Mega Man himself.
Okay.
Kind of like Sonic, the Green Hill Zone. The
Okay.
tracks back then really seemed to be attached to the stages.
As opposed to like the main character. Yeah, that's an interesting point actually. Is that main characters sometimes don't get themes, do they? And it's every other person who seems to get a theme in the game. I'm trying to think of a good example here.
I was thinking of stuff like even Star Fox 64, for example. You would think Fox McCloud would have his own theme, but no, you have the Cornelia theme, you have the main theme, you have the Death Screen theme. I'm pretty sure if you dug deep, there was a Slippy and a Peppy theme in there. But Fox himself, poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could even attribute it to Mario. Like the character of Mario doesn't, like, quote unquote, have a theme, but people associate, the original ground theme with Mario, as in the stage, but it's not actually a theme about him. It's a theme about the terrain and area that he's in. But no, I like that. I think if I heard it again, I definitely would be like, yes, Mega Man 2. Was it 2? Mega Man 2?
2.
2. Yeah. Mega Man 2. Yeah. Was Dr. Wily a character in Mega Man 1?
He reappears quite a lot.
Okay.
So there's another boss theme for Dr. Wily's Revenge as well.
Oh.
It's another Mega Man.
Is that telling of how he keeps losing to Mega Man?
Your Dr. Robotniks, your Bowsers. Yeah. They're all up there, and they're still trying to do the same shit.
It's like the composer's toolkit, isn't it? Like, we'll just call this Bowser's Revenge, and we'll just call it, Dr. Wily's Revenge.
And at this point, they just stop having any sort of relevance. There's that there was that Switch game for Mario where, for some reason, it's a massive open world, but for some reason, Bowser's just a massive kaiju in the middle of a lake.
Oh gosh, yeah. Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, something like
Bowser's Fury, that's the one.
Yeah.
And like you said, Bowser's Rage, Bowser's Fury, Dr. Wily's Revenge.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thanks for playing that one. Shall we hop on to my next one?
Sounds good to me, bud.
Brilliant. Right, let me load it up.
Now, Phil.
Go on.
That took the entire duration of that song to bring up the PTSD.
The giant floating head.
I had 3 of these. It's of course brain training on the DS.
It is.
It is brain training.
It is. I was trying to think of some really iconic games for the Nintendo DS, and I started writing down a list of a lot of the classics, and then I remembered about brain training, and my gosh, it just feels like a fever dream now that there used to be a time where kids around the country, around the world, were rushing home to turn their DS sideways to do some quick maths in the hopes to bring their brain age to a sparkling like 20 or something. I think it's absolutely crazy.
It's almost the Galaxy Brain memes from today, back in the day. You know, I can't believe this was such an incredibly high-selling game.
Yeah,
You're right. If you released it today on the Switch, it would be donezo.
yeah.
There'd be no sales.
I think it's an interesting venture, definitely, to go alongside education with gaming, and it's not, you know, the first of its kind, and I doubt brain training it was the last of its kind. You know, there are still educational games targeted towards a younger audience, to get them thinking and doing more. What's interesting, though, is that there is actually quite a lot of controversy over the game's scientific effectiveness. So I think there was a load of tests that were done to see if people's, you know, cognitive abilities were improving by playing the game, and there are some studies that show that it does, and there are some studies that show that it doesn't, and it's all just a bit of a mess. But I think the thing that stands out for me is Nintendo's statement that was basically just like, it's just a game, guys, come on. Which I think is incredible, especially when it's marketed as, you know, it's gonna get you thinking faster.
If I remember correctly as well, it's not called brain training, is it? It's got a name attached to it, doesn't it? Like Takahashi or
Yeah. So it's Dr. Kawashima's brain training.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
But funnily enough as well, Dr. Kawashima, the actual name doesn't appear in the US version of the game. They only added Dr. Kawashima to PAL countries, which I believe is sort of everything east of the sort of the Atlantic Sea. But yeah, so this piece of music was composed by Minako.
Dr. Kawashima.
Yeah, he did everything. He's very, very clever guy. Composed by Minako Hamano, and she also did Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. But she's more prominently known for her involvement within the composition and sound design of the Metroid series. And as well, it was also composed by this guy called Akito Nakatsuka, who was a composer much earlier on in Nintendo's history. He did the compositions for Punch-Out!, and he did Ice Climber, the very first Ice Climber game, and he also worked on the second Zelda 2. So yeah, it's I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's such a crazy thought to think that this game ever existed, and, you know, still exists to this day. You know, it was designed to be very much you know, a formula of its time, you know, to be played a little bit every day. And, you know, back then, I guess in the 2000s, there definitely was a media spur to, you know, make sure that children and kids weren't playing too much games. So, you know, they started designing games to be played a little bit every day. So, you know, my mind jumps to things like Nintendogs. You know, you're supposed to play a little bit every day to feed your dog and take them for a walk. And similarly with Animal Crossing, you know, it's not something that you just play out all in one day. You keep going back to it day after day. And I just don't think that kind of longevity exists nowadays with video games. It's very much a, you sit down, you play until you finish, and then, you know, you box it away and you're done with it.
Yeah, it was a very odd time. You're right with the Nintendo situation. The fact that they were like, you know, you can't have all the dogs in a single game. You have to buy the copy with the Labradoodle if you want a Labradoodle.
Oh yeah, God, yes, yeah. Oh my gosh, I remember.
Going back to the music itself, I think the bit that really clued me off to it was hearing the the almost cell phone style interludes in between the main theme. It's very strange.
It is strange, but I quite like it. I think it's quite interesting. If anyone is a music player as well, I tried having a look at the chord progressions from this, and it goes from a sort of a B major to an A major, and whenever you do that whole tone jump between chords, it's a very bright movement. But this one, it goes from B major down to A major, and then back up to B major. But no worries if that's going over your head, Tom.
I was thinking about it for a second, and I think Dr. Kawashima would be incredibly happy today that we're sitting here complimenting his composing.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Kawashima is a genius. You know, he got everyone hooked on a game.
Doctorate in both neuroscience, music, and you know what? Maybe even business sciences.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, I think that's definitely strained my brain. What have you got in line for us next?
This next one is. I hope to show you a few tracks from this game. Actually,
Okay.
it's one I've played pretty recently, but I think the thing that jumps out to me is just the breadth of what they're able to do. So I'm going to whip it up right now. It's another high tempo track, but it's very layered. We'll get right into it.
Holy crap, that was so cool.
Was it cool?
That was so cool. Holy, I can't. Honestly, I was sat there, be like, "Oh, this is really good. This is really good." And then the electric guitar comes in with the heavy drums, and I was like, "What the hell? This is incredible." I have okay. I have
What's the guesses?
so
I'll give you a few.
okay. I was originally trying to do the paces in my head for games that have eerie children's sort of women's vocals in there. Um, and I know that you played The Witcher 3 last time, and I don't think you'd pick The Witcher 3 again. I don't think The Witcher 3 would have something as seriously metal as what you played. That was definitely the half part of it. Because I was thinking something like Elden Ring as well, something quite epic with the voices. Now, I'm going to make a guess here, and I've not played this game, but it did just sort of like jump out to me. Is it Hades?
It's actually a good guess. It's a really good guess because I would say not the theming is correct, but I think the thing that would give away a Hades track is I'm not sure if you can give me the actual technical word for what I'm describing, but there's a thematic that goes on in Hades where there's a sort of 4 to 16 bars of music that they play in every track that you can hear
Oh,
that goes
okay.
on. They play it in every single song, and it's definitely not in this. So unfortunately, it's not Hades.
Okay, okay. That is cool. That would be called like a motif that is like just used repeatedly.
Yeah,
Um.
that's the word.
Okay. Okay. So it's not Hades. Um. Okay. Well, I'm gonna make a educated guess that it is a late Final Fantasy that I have not played.
I wish this was a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, it's far
Uh,
too epic for a Final Fantasy game. Oh God.
it,
Oh no, wait. Give me one more guess. Give me one more guess. Hang on.
you can have it. You can have it, my friend.
No. I've got no idea. What is it?
This is from an MMO ARPG that released in February of not of last year. It's Lost Ark.
Oh.
Now, this is why I wanted to bring this piece to you because I feel like there was so much commentary and so much discussion about Lost Ark. But again, sort of tying into the sort of bringing on the orchestra during their performances and conventions, they do this. But I still don't think people talk about the music enough for this game. I was looking up a little background on it. There's 2 quoted composers for this game.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they did this track. And I don't think they did any of the tracks that I actually like.
That's always
It's
a
a
good
very
sign.
weird one. One of them is very famous. One of them is a man called Brian Tyler. He's done, God, name it, he's done it. He's in all sorts. He's huge in film and in TV as well. He recently did all the music for Yellowstone, which is probably the biggest TV show in America right now. Try and bring up some more specific stuff. He did stuff for Avengers.
Oh, he's done
in
the
Marvel
Fast and
industry.
Furious stuff.
Fast and Furious stuff.
Okay.
He's done the Formula One TV show that's coming out. He did he was in the Super Mario Bros. Movie. He seems to just have his fingers in every pie. And it's cool seeing these people who are incredibly mainstream come and do an MMO soundtrack for a Korean company. Why I want to talk about it, the whole position of, you mentioned it earlier, thematic of a game, that every sort of aesthetic that you're trying to match with the game has to have a soundtrack that mirrors it. Now, this game gets quite lucky because a lot of the bosses, which are called Legion Commanders, which are pretty hard, probably the best ARPG bosses I think I've ever seen in a game. very punishing. Some would say too much so. But every single Legion commander has almost a different vibe, a different feeling that they bring to something. So to give you this position, this is from Akan. Khan is an undead necromancer, but not like a shriveling Western version. He's like a huge demon with a scythe, essentially. And that crescendo you hear with the electric guitar is the finale phase, where he essentially knocks away the stage, and there are thousands of essentially just minute enemies, zombies, thralls, ghouls, whatever, that rush up this huge pillar in the sky that you're fighting him on, and you have to hack them down and live for a minute until you can call your ally to come in and finish him off. But in other tracks, you'll see there's stuff like Volton. He's a Minotaur character, but he has a very drum-heavy, very sort of like encroaching danger feel to it. Whereas this one feels more frantic.
It's making me want to play Lost Ark, I must say, because I know that I think every time I open up Steam, it says, Tom's playing Lost Ark, and I've not. To be honest, I don't think I'd be able to tell you anything about it apart from now that there is an epic soundtrack of a necromancer who's, got a scythe, and there's a really cool battle with him. That sounds amazing. ARPG?
Yes, so an action RPG. So top-down perspective, sort of akin to Diablo.
Okay. Well, that I must say, I think that it was a fantastic track that you played me. I think whenever I try and think about what I'm going to play you, I'm always thinking, oh god, what are some really like balls to the walls, epic, soundtracks. And I really do struggle sometimes because I feel that everything that I come up with, you will know instantly, and I'm trying to show you stuff that you might not have heard of or might not think to play. So I love that. That was fantastic. That was really, really good.
There's definitely loads out there for sure, but I think a sort of key memory for me that you've unlocked from saying that was I remember showing someone that I've shown you before, the Airbuster theme from Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
That sort of same shredding guitar, big drums, evolves as the soundtrack develops. But then someone said, "Oh, I've got a song for you I think you'll really like," and then played me Rip and Tear from Doom 2016. And I was like, I think this is quite simply the most iconic track. And I was happy that you showed it to me because, anyone getting into Doom 2016 deserves a gold star in my book.
Yeah.
But Mick Gordon's soundtrack, I feel, has really kicked off this love for this type of music again, which I feel like we haven't seen since the edgy era in the mid 2000s. Your Gears of War, your Borderlands.
It kind of came. Yeah,
I'll be looking forward to showing you more of this very soon.
I'm excited. I think that's fantastic. I think I'll have to try and put my thinking cap on whenever I'm guessing it's Lost Ark. Shall we?
Perfect time to spin up the next.
So, what I like to end on is obviously a game that is within the last couple of years. And this is a game that I played, I think it must have been during the height of COVID. So, everyone was sort of at home, not doing very much. And this is a game that I played. So, I'll see if you can guess it. I'm hoping you know it, but perhaps you don't. Let's get it going.
I can almost see it. I can picture it in front of my eyes. And I'm pretty confident with this guess, and this might be my downfall for saying it.
Go for it.
This has to be Ellie or Joel playing guitar from The Last of Us.
Okay, well, you are right. It is The Last of Us. It's actually The Last of Us Part 2.
Ah, so I wouldn't have heard this. I haven't played The Last of Us 2.
Have you not? Oh, okay. I know very well that the community of The Last of Us, there's not the best reception for The Last of Us Part 2. And that is because of, as I'm sure that you know, there's some very tough choices that you have to make in The Last of Us. And you predominantly play as Ellie for the whole game. I'm hoping not to spoil it for anyone, but I feel like it's been out for so long now that most people will know what happens. But this track is called Longing, and it is interesting that you say it's either Ellie or Joel that plays this guitar, and it's neither. It's actually it's not officially classed as the theme, but it is the theme of the other playable character that you're able to play in The Last of Us Part 2, which is Abby. So a little bit about the composer, Gustavo Alfredo Santaolalla. He has done all of the Last of Us, all of the Last of Us games, and I absolutely love the sound that he brings to the table with this music, and there's such a rawness about it. If you listen to it, you can hear that the microphone is so close to the strings that you can hear his fingers moving up and down the strings, and I think that just gives such a raw, primal feeling, and that is what the game is about. It's about human beings being stripped down to nothing but their primal state, forced to survive in a world ravaged by people that are sick with this virus. So yeah, I said that the theme was Abby's theme. Do you know much about the Last of Us 2 game, Tom?
I've seen a lot of videos about The Last of Us 2.
Okay.
I've kind of spoiled it for myself at this point. I think the thing that's sort of put me off is being, and this is a fault of my own, seeing so much decisiveness about a game that's. I talk to Joe Schmo down the street, and they say their favorite video game is Last of Us 1. I feel like everyone who's played a video game says that Last of Us is their favorite game. And to see it almost coin toss of Last of Us 2, where you either love it or you hate it. And I think actually at the initial reception, people didn't like it for all the wrong reasons. But now that it's really been out for a long time, and especially the TV shows come out and people have had time to think on it, and I know about the story, I would say that avoiding spoilers as much as possible, I think the direction is completely fine. I think I have a few issues with where it takes Ellie as a character, but I think the most shocking thing in The Last of Us 2, it seems that there's nothing much to do in a zombie apocalypse, it seems, because everyone is so good at guitar.
Yeah, that's what they spend their time doing. Instead of shooting zombies, everyone just learns how to play a musical instrument. Yeah, you are absolutely right. In my opinion, I think it's a very real game. It's about suffering. It's about mourning. It's about loss, and it also portrays the protagonists as the antagonists. And in a game where you are so deeply in love with these characters from having played The Last of Us 1, you don't want to think of them as antagonists. But that is what The Last of Us 1 was trying to say, in my opinion. That even Joel, even Ellie, they are antagonists throughout this entire game, even though they think that they're their own protagonist. And that gets realized by the conceptualization of Abby. Abby is, in her eyes, the protagonist because she's, avenging her father.
Yeah, half the characters, God, the characters are brilliant. Absolutely top of the class. There's the reason why one of the first ever video game shows that really made it was that. And I'm happy it did. And the actors, I think, do it very well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's the way that the characters interact with each other. It just feels very real. It's like you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
In terms of the sound direction, one thing that's more common, I think, for games nowadays, especially when we're talking about, for example, God of War, Ragnarok, for example, those kind of big adventure games where there's a lot of dialogue between very individual characters, and you'll start to notice this now that I've said it, but you'll notice that when characters speak to each other, they will cross over each other's speaking much more quickly than in earlier games. What you have is these video game companies, having all of the characters in the same room that are able to interact with each other and speak over each other, and that is something that I think is becoming more common in video games, but it makes it feel so much more real.
I agree with you completely. I think God of War Remaster did a brilliant job of doing that exact same thing, where when he's talking to his son, the scenes, where he looks at him sternly and goes, "Boy, you must listen to me," type of thing. And it's the same thing as The Last of Us 1. They're looking into each other's eyes. They're actually conversing. You almost feel, in some of the scenes in The Last of Us 1, it feels like you're intruding. And you feel uncomfortable. It feels like you're in the room with them, listening to something you shouldn't. And I don't think you can get that across without exactly what you just said. You need voice actors in the same booth with perfectly composed, moody music over the top of it. That guitar is iconic. His style is incredible. I completely love what you say, where you feel like you can feel the finger stroke. One of my favorite things in anything that involves a guitar is when you can hear their fingers running down the string.
Yeah.
And there's that metallic, almost akin to a zipper noise. But for some reason, there's something about guitar where it feels more physical. So, finish us up on this lovely episode. I have selected a track from my favorite ever composer in video game history. But it's going to be funny letting you hear this and then reading out what they've done. I think we'll kick it off straight away. What do you think of that one?
Well, I have a very strong guess, as I think I know what this is. Is it from F-Zero?
It isn't. It isn't
What?
from F-Zero.
What?
It's not, but it's an actual brilliant guess.
It's not from F-Zero?
It's not from F-Zero.
Oh my goodness. Oh no. I had it in my head that it was F-Zero all this time, and I was there like, ugh, let me smarty pants. I I recognise it. I do recognise it.
This is an iconic piece of music, but you might not have heard this exact version of
No, go on. Tell me what it is.
This is Ken's theme from Street Fighter.
Oh, of course. Oh, God, silly. Oh, good.
It's frustrating, isn't it? This is from Yoko Shimomura, maybe one of the gods of video game music. She is absolutely a titan in her industry. I can read you off some of the games. It's actually crazy. Final Fight, Street Fighter 2. We go into like Super Mario RPG, Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, 3, the lot.
Wow.
We've got Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Story. We've got it's going. She's literally been making music for over 40 years now. She made Final Fantasy 15 soundtrack. She did Streets of Rage 4. She did the Mario Rabbids game soundtrack.
Iconic. I mean, that's a great game.
And then she did the arrangements for like Super Smash Bros. Brawl, all like the famous tracks from that game as well. So not only does she compose, but she arranges these pieces as well, which, I mean, you know how much especially Kingdom Hearts music means to me. But when I found out that she did Ken's theme from Street Fighter 2, it was a massive shock to me because nothing like something in Kingdom Hearts. But this specifically is Street Fighter 5 Ken's theme.
Okay.
So
how does it differ from the Street Fighter 2 theme? Is it just a bit more cleaner instruments, cleaner sound?
Yes. So the original piece is a very old school game. So it's done, a la some of the earlier tracks like Mega Man that we talked about earlier.
Like that kind of synthy sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Whereas this
I
has
bought
like
this
electric
for you.
guitar and it's got drums and the whole sort of like real life sort of thing.
It kicks off. It's one of my favorite tracks in video game history, but it has a special place in my heart because I think I can talk about an aspect of video game music that I don't think we've talked about so far, which is how it changes your life physically. Now that sounds weird, but when you think about normal music that you listen to, it can invoke emotions. It can bring up, change in you. I know certainly I've heard people listen to some of their favorite tracks and they're like, I can't explain to you how much this changed me. And it feels weird saying this about video game music, but this game, Street Fighter V, and various other games around it, inspired me single-handedly to work out, go to the gym, train.
Yeah.
Because 70s action heroes didn't do it to me. The models on TV didn't. But seeing Ryu and Ken square off against each other, shake hands and say, "I want to get better." I want to learn to be better. I want to get stronger. I want to beat you. I want to learn skills.
It's kind of the ethos of martial arts, though, isn't it? I think that's
Exactly.
what's so different, perhaps maybe from the mentality of other sports, is that martial arts is about fortitude, not just of the body but of the mind as well, and it's about respecting each other and respecting your opponent. Absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said about martial arts in general, but especially when it's conveyed in a way that can be an inspiration for kids, adults, anyone really.
And I think with the sort of overlying and this is definitely eroding at a fast rate. But the original idea, you played video games, you were in your mother's basement, playing World of Warcraft, and there was no future for you or no hope or whatever. But like certainly, video games and anime as well at the same time did the complete opposite to me. It's the thing that got me into the gym, wanting to train when I was 16 years old.
Well, it's that stereotype, isn't it, of people that play video games that was so heavily endorsed by the government to make sure that people weren't spending all their time playing it. But as we live in the modern world, you find people that they just play video games as a hobby. It doesn't engulf their whole life. Well, I say that, and I feel like it has engulfed most of my life. but
I think you're onto something. It's a hobby now, right? It's a passion, and I think the industry is now the biggest industry in the world. It beats film and music for sales and revenue. A lot of that is mobile games, considering. However, not being gatekeepy, those are people who play video games. Not games I would play, but games, they are, in a sense, they are gamers. But I think the thing that gets me with this track specifically is not only did it inspire me to go into the gym, but God, did some of the PRs come from hearing this track.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if you put this on the AirPods, or you put them on your earphones, I'm too poor to own AirPods, but if you put them on the earphones, yeah, definitely you blast this out. It's definitely going to get you lifting heavier weights, 100%. It's interesting, actually, when we were talking earlier with Mega Man about the idea of the theme, and that each individual Street Fighter character, I guess, has their own theme as well. Is that what plays
opposite
in the actual? Does it play in the stage itself, or?
Yeah, so there's lots of different music options for fighting games, much like Street Fighter V. But when you pick this character, you're going to be hearing this theme a lot. And, my favorite character in Street Fighter V was either Ken or Zeku. But, I could play 300 games in a row.
Yeah.
Every time you're hitting a combo and you hear this theme kicking off in the background, ooh, it's some serotonin directly into your vein. Trust.
I feel it's a good genre to go into, actually, the fighting game genre. And I imagine as we go on, there definitely will be more fighting games that we'll pick out from. But yeah, you're right. Street Fighter has such a classic soundtrack to it, with Ryu's theme, Ken's theme.
I think
I'm trying to remember
iconic theme, Guile's theme.
Guile's theme. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, the guy in the green, the blonde spiky hair. That guy. Yeah. It's absolutely classic. But yeah, definitely with fighting games, there was a need, I think, to have these individual themes to make characters very unique and to portray them in that unique way.
As you're lost booting up the game and you're thinking, God, I'm overwhelmed, it's my first fighting game. It might not have just come out, it might have been 3 years in. But yeah, you've seen something on Twitch or you've watched an esport event and you go, God, that was awesome. And the tension was incredible. But what do I play? This is the first thing you're going to see. You're going to see Ken doing a fire kick and then this shredding thing plays over the top. Ken is the most played character. I could bet you some money it's because of the theme. Well, I think it's about time to wrap this episode up, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on The Beatbox. We listen to tracks from Disco Elysium, Dr. Kawashima's Brain Training, The Last of Us Part 2, and Mega Man 2, Lost Ark, and Street Fighter V. We hope to see you all next time, where we'll be listening to even more beats. So, goodbye everyone. See you next time.